So I'm going to show you today how to approximate a square root for numbers that are very, very large. And we're going to do that by first focusing on a square root that we can find the actual answer of exactly because it's a perfect square, but it's the composition of two perfect squares. What I mean by that is an example such as the square root of 810,000. If we attempt to take the square root of 810,000, we can notice that it's actually the composition of two numbers. It's 81 and 10,000 multiplied together. Now, rules for square roots mean that we can actually separate this into the square root of 81 multiplied by the square root of 10,000, and it'll give us the exact same answer. So we've split it up based off of that so that we can now evaluate these individually. The square root of 81 being 9, the square root of 10,000 being 100. The nice thing about powers of 10 is that you can literally just group the zeros together to say these two zeros become 1 0, these two zeros become 1 0. So we get a final answer of 9 times 100, or 900. So we're able to take the square root of a large number by separating it into two perfect squares, taking the square roots of those individually and then multiplying them back together. We're going to use this to approximate a much larger square root that's not going to be taken from a perfect square. An example of that is this: 153,428, 153,428. Taking the square root of this, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put it to something a little more approximate that we know. In order to do that, we first have to group together these pairs of zeros. Now, they're not zeros yet, but they will be when we approximate it. So the 2 and 8 become a pair of zeros, the 3 and 4 are going to become a pair of zeros, and we're left in front with 15. So the front few numbers we're going to examine, we're going to say, what's a perfect square that's close to that? Perfect square close to 15 would be 16. So we're going to approximate this as 160,000 instead. It's going to give us a pretty good answer because it's the one that's the perfect square. Excuse me, the 16 is the perfect square that's closest to that. So we're going to take the square root of this. When we do so, we can use the same strategy as above. We can split out the 16, we can split out the 10,000, and we can take the square roots both individually. The square root of 16 being 4, the square root of 10,000 being 100. We get an answer of 4 times 100, or 400. That is our approximate answer to the square root of 153,428. Now let's look and see what it actually is. Pull up our calculator here. Plug in the number 153,428. Hit the square root sign, and we're going to get something pretty darn close. 391.6. If we're rounding that up, 392. We're at 400. So pretty close to the ballpark that we're talking about.